Hello, and welcome to what I would call the re-emergence or rebroadcasting of a series of broadcast shows which we titled Broadcast Biographies. Now, all of these people that you're going to see in this rerun of this series, actually 9 people in all good friends, some no longer with us and some still very, very much alive and active and still very much in love with this business of broadcasting. But one of the very first ones we did was a lady named Rosa Rio. This woman, as a teenage girl in the mid-1930s, became a radio legend as the organist for all the popular soap operas and dramas of that era. She was a human machine, running from one studio to another, sometimes with a minute between, to create the music bed, which added the drama and the excitement and the fun, everything else. The music told you how to react to what you were listening to on the radio, mysteries or romance and all the rest. Rosa Rio, like I said, was a teenage sensation in the mid-30s. We lost her on May 13th of 2010. And when the biography, the obit appeared in our local papers, that's when we knew for a fact that Rosa Rio was 107 years old when she passed away. We went to her house, sat on a piano bench with her, as you will see very shortly, and had Rosa Rio take us through an incredible career. She's a tiny little dynamite of a person, and a delightful, delightful human being. Here she is, Rosa Rio, the sound of music, you might say, for the radio industry in the 30s, 40s, and clear into the early 50s. Enjoy.
Hello, I'm Don Blair, and I've only been actively involved in radio and television for about 48 years. But when I was a kid growing up in the decade leading up to World War II and in that era throughout, our special guest on this program was a driving force, an ever-present ingredient in the radio programs that we grew up with, the dramas and the mysteries and the soap operas. A lot of the programs of that type, of course, were variety shows like Hope and Crosby and Eddie Cantor, and they had their full orchestras, naturally. But just about every other type of broadcast conveyed its drama, its mystery, and a variety of emotions through organ music. Now, that music told you that danger lurked, or that you had reason to be fearful or joyful, or to be afraid to open a door, usually a squeaky door, right? The organ was actually radio's punctuation, because we grew to regard the radio of the 30s and 40s as what we called theater of the mind, because without television we had to use our imaginations, coupled with the brilliance of the actors and actresses and that organ music. Rosa Rio played the organ on dozens of the most popular programs of those days. The announcer's sign-off, music by Rosa Rio, was as common as a network's call letters. And speaking of call letters, most of Rosa's radio career was spent at 30 Rockefeller Center, NBC. She's still active to this day, still makes appearances, still plays concerts, and gives organ lessons, piano too. But more about that later. Right now, our crack team of actors gathers to give you just a taste of a typical favorite of radio's golden era, My True Story. True Story. Today and every day, Monday through Friday, a complete story about people and their problems. Adapted from material supplied by True Story magazine.
The old woman sat in the doorway, and suddenly she gazed intently down the road, and the elder of the village spoke.
Someone is coming this way, Mother.
It's a girl, a very young girl, and I think, though I see her from a distance, that she needs help, for she is about to bear a child.
Can we gain comfort and also learn a lesson from something that might have happened? Well, we'll learn the answer to our question in today's story. But first, hear this. And now, our story for today.
She came wearily into the little northern village, an old woman in the somber dress of a widow. She paused at the well, which was in the center of the village, and asked the elder of the village, who happened to be standing there, for a cup of water. And as he gave it to her, he noticed with compassion that her body was bent almost double, and that her eyes were filled with an agony of heartbreak. And he spoke to her gently.
You've come a long way, Mother.
I've come a very long way, sir, both in years and in miles. And thank you for calling me Mother, since I'm old enough to be your grandmother.
You make me feel far younger than I am, so I must thank you. When will your journey end?
That I do not know, sir.
What I meant was, where are you going?
Why, I have no destination. I just travel on and on and on as each day fades into the next day. And when I'm tired, I rest somewhere, if people are kind and will allow me to rest.
People are kinder these days than they used to be. When I was a boy, people were suspicious of strangers. They threw stones and shouted curses and drove strangers away from their doors.
Even strangers as old as I, sir. It's not a question. Yes, I know. People.
If you have enjoyed the program which you have just heard, the editors of True Story magazine, who suggested the material from which it was adapted, are sure you will also enjoy reading I Had to Believe Him or Leave Him, a taut drama of a woman whose faith was put to the sternest possible test. Could Donna's deep love overcome the nagging doubts that besieged her? Read I Had to Believe Him or Leave Him in the current issue of True Story magazine. And don't miss the fabulous $25,000 story contest. Buy your copy of True Story magazine today at all newsstands. My True Story is adapted for radio by Margaret E. Sangster. Featured in our cast today were Jan Miner as the mother of Judas, Arnold Moss as the elder of the village, Nina Reeder as the young girl, and Mandel Kramer as our narrator. The music was by Rosa Rio. My True Story is directed by Kenneth McGregor and produced by Ted Lloyd. This is Ed Hurley, wishing you all a very happy Easter. Hello, Rosa Rio.
Hello?
What was the name of that?
That was Sunrise Serenade.
And that was your theme?
That was my theme. As a matter of fact, I had my organ here and had a piano on the side. And I played the right hand on the piano and the left hand on the organ for my theme.
All right. Since this program that we're doing right now is about you and your life, where did it all begin? Where'd you grow up?
Well, strange as it may seem, the previous thing led to my radio, because I was in New Orleans when the silent pictures dropped out overnight, and we wondered what we would do. So fortunately, that led to this. I had one time decided on piano, and I went to Oberlin and to study, and on a vacation time.
Where is Oberlin?
Oberlin, Ohio.
Oh, that's what I thought.
Conservatory, sorry.
Right, okay.
And I went to Cleveland for a vacation, and I went into one of their magnificent palaces, not movie theaters, palaces.
Yes, yes.
I heard this organ. I had never heard, because I came from the South, I never had heard a pipe organ. I stayed for the second show,
Fell in love
and
with it.
I said, now I know what I wanted to do.
Yes,
And so I read where that in Rochester, New York, the Eastman School of Music was the only school for learning the correct accompaniments to silent pictures. So I went there to study. So then I went back to New Orleans, and I was at the Big Sanger Theater, which had a huge Robert Morton organ. And then everything seemed to be just wonderful. I just thought I was fixed for life. In fact, I knew I was. Then in came the talkies practically overnight, as you know. And with Al Jolson coming in singing Sonny Boy, that was the toll of the bell that says this is the end. And we all cried, because we thought this was the end of the career. And so then I came up to New York, because a godfather there said, if you can't make it in New York, you can't make it anywhere.
Sounds like a song, doesn't it?
So I came to New York and walked the streets.
Did you?
And ate red beans and rice for a long time.
Did you go to auditions, or did you know?
Oh, I couldn't get in anything. Finally, I was almost going to give up, and I became a accompanist for some of the Broadway singers, Mary Martin especially.
Really?
I was her accompanist. And then one of the students said they had been to NBC and they needed an organist very badly.
Really?
So I reluctantly went over and to NBC, and they said yes, there was an opening. And so I gave them an audition. They gave me a rather strenuous one. And so they said, okay, I began Monday morning. And I played the week, so I came in very happily, said, well, I'll be with this. Do I have the job? Well, he said, well, not just yet. Come back Monday. And I said, what do you mean? Well, he explained that they had 100 men there, and no women. And so I decided that really, you know, I really hit the 100 temperature. And so anywho, a little bit of talk and so forth and so on, I got the job there and stayed for 22 years. Now, what made me good for that kind of work was really my theater work. See, because cueing pictures and drama, the stings, the agitatos, or the suspense, or the love themes, all those things, I really had gotten my baptism in the theater work for the silent pictures. And that made me very flexible for this type of work. And also, probably the main ingredient was I could improvise. And to a lot of people that don't know, improvising is knowing your theory, and you're musically composing. That is not faking. And so therefore, I fitted in unknowingly right into radio work. Loved it.
I'm sure you
Loved it. I knew this. I was going to be there till I was 85, I tell the boys. I said, well, I'm going to play here at 85. You just lift me up on the stool. I'll play. Little did we know, boom, TV came in. Then I was out again. Okay, all of these years rolled by, and where am I? Back again. at the Tampa Theater here in Tampa, playing the organ for silent pictures, and here doing radio for you folks.
Yes. Now, we are going to go through shortly on this program all the famous themes of the programs that you were associated with, plus what you do in your appearances. You and your husband, you go out and you tease the audience with all these familiar melodies, and they shout them out from the audience, and you can play the game with me and see how many I can recall and remember. But that's programmed music. You've got that on music sheets right in front of you, or after all many years, you know this material. But when a radio director or producer came to Rosa Rio and wrote a script or gave it to you and asked for, and you were following the dialogue of the actors and the actresses, as I said in my introduction to this program, it was radio's punctuation. You were the punctuation.
Right.
You told us whether to be scared or happy.
Right.
Could you give us a few examples of some of these little hits that you did? I assume this is the stuff that you made up.
Yes. Well, I'll say that we take a scary thing.
Yes.
You see,
yeah.
right? So something.
Dread.
And we often timed it with my sound man, so that way I might have something like this. And as I came off, he'd open the door or knock on the door, you know.
Yes,
and we tried to coincide every little tiny thing. It was fun.
Oh, yeah.
And say now that we have a love theme. And of course, the love theme is very, very delicious, you know. You could be sure it's about time to cry. Oh,
absolutely.
this, you know, I really took those soap operas seriously.
Theater of the, well, everybody did, and of course now in television people take it very seriously.
Of course, we had somebody coming down the lane very happy.
Yes.
And then. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And all of those things. And sometimes there would just only be one little tiny thing, see?
Yeah.
Or just, but it gave the flavor.
You can see that exclamation point. You can
Yeah.
just see it in your mind. Theater of the mind.
And remember, too, in radio was different from the movies. In radio, we had to express it in seconds.
Yes.
So you had to express whatever that is in 1 to 2 seconds. And with your movies or things, why you can take a long time to do the same thing. So you had to be very alert. One of the things that was very important, and your director always felt more comfortable with you, they would change and decide to change it there and try to get it to you, and you had to change your idea of music that fast. You had no way of writing a score and just following that score, or they may suddenly cut out. You may find that they're running too fast, and he's got to cut out a thing. So he's telling you maybe page 4. See, 1, 2, 3, 4. Cut out. She just there. So I have to jump a cue. So you have no way of following music. You've got to be so alert with your eye on your director in the cage, as we said, and on your script. So the director felt much more comfortable too.
Now, when our little acting troupe was just doing our level best to imitate wonderful, wonderful people from many, many decades ago on My True Story, a little bit we did, there are times when it says theme up and then under, fade and under. At that point, are you still playing a real melody, or are you just simply improvising just to keep the sound of music underneath?
I tried when that comes up to be thematic.
Yes.
And then when I come down, I try to be non-descriptive.
Yes, that's what I thought.
It's non-descriptive, so it's not, you don't hear any melody flowing, but you get a flavor of the chord.
Right.
See, whether it's minor. that's a sad something they're doing.
Yeah.
Or if it's major, it's a little happier. See, whatever that is. Then I use just my hands and no feet for that.
Oh.
See, I keep out the bass pedals, so I use just the hands.
What would the difference be? You're talking to a non-musician here.
Well, by keeping just the higher you are, the more suspenseful it is. And so then I keep out the bass pedals.
Okay.
See, then when I come into the theme, I balance it with the bass, the left hand, the right hand, so that you get from 0 to 100.
Okay. I think this is a good time to ask you to start playing for us and then telling us the programs that you were most associated with, as well as what you also do in your appearances, and that is give the audience a little teaser, a taste of a famous theme, and of course a lot of us may know the music, but can we always associate that song instantly with the personality? The Bob Hope and the Bing Crosbys and so forth.
Without a fail, this is number one.
Okay.
Always. When
number
Bill,
one. Here we go.
When Bill and I play this, number one, it gets them.
Okay. It was The Shadow.
Of course, The Shadow.
Was that an original piece of music, or
no,
was it a classical
that's
piece?
from the Spinning Wheel, from Sanson.
No kidding.
It's from his symphony.
I might have thought it was completely original for that program.
No, it's a very wonderful part in the symphony, and it's called the Spinning Wheel of Sanson. And we take little liberties that Mr. Sanson probably didn't write, but anyhow, that is the number one. People love that.
Well, one of our
Shadow.
departed friends and broadcast pioneers here in Florida used to do that voice.
Really?
Who knows what what evil lurks in the hearts of men. That wonderful, wonderful line.
Well, Orson Welles was the first, and I was on the first program, and he was very young then.
Well, about here.
Very young and full of life and a lot of fun. He was great to work with.
You've got a beautiful picture of young Orson here that we're going to show our audience.
Later he went to Hollywood and ballooned.
Got big. He got big in many ways.
Very big. But he was wonderful. He was a lot of fun.
Incredible talent.
What else? We were at the radio convention last October in Newark, and Ethel and Albert.
Ethel and Albert.
Yes.
That's
Just a Love Nest.
Just a Love Nest.
And that was Ethel and Albert's. When in their story, she wrote everything herself. She wrote and acted the part.
Were they really people named Ethel and Albert?
No.
No, that was their persona.
And what I thought was so funny was she had a little girl. And we had a wonderful, wonderful actress called Madeline Pierce. And Madeline must have weighed all of 175 pounds. And she was this little tiny girl, which people could not see on radio.
Right.
And that was what is beautiful. People had to use imagination with radio.
Isn't that the truth?
And then when they moved to television, they didn't want to pay for an extra character, so she left the little girl with her mother.
All right, moving right along.
People are funny.
What
well, everybody knew this. They know this when I played.
When I learned to sing that in grammar
Lorenzo
school.
Jones.
Funiculi,
Yeah,
funicula.
you're right.
Lorenzo Jones.
Lorenzo Jones, and everybody loved him. It was a nice, refreshing show because nobody was in pain and suffering.
Was any particular actor who later became, very, very like an Orson Welles? Did any particular famous name play Lorenzo Jones?
Yes. Svensson.
Svensson.
Svensson, S-V-E-N-S-C-N, Svensson. Carl Vinson, C-A-R-L, Carl Vinson. And he was just wonderful. And what was nice about that show to play was that he didn't always follow the script exactly.
Oh, really?
And put a lot of himself in it. And so you were really on your toes because you didn't know what he was going to do.
Oh, boy.
And so you had to watch him.
Yeah.
So he was. Then, of course, this is a little sentimental, and this was on CBS.
Poor Butterfly.
Poor Butterfly, and that was Mert and Marge.
Mert and Marge.
And they really were mother and daughter.
I see.
And she wrote the show all the time. I have pictures too here of the gospel singer. He was strictly Scottish. He came from Scotland, and he sang all the gospel songs that people loved. And this was one I thought was always pretty, An Evening Prayer.
Was this NBC or CBS?
This is NBC.
NBC.
He sang every morning around 9:30 and did the gospel songs in a very simple way, not church-like, and people loved him. In fact, my husband Bill said his mother would say to him, "Okay, this is my time to sit down. Don't anyone call me." And she would sit down quietly and listen to this program. And of course, she didn't know, we didn't know her then, but she just loved it.
Well, people today that listen to radio in their cars, and very seldom, I think you have a radio audience in the house. I don't think it's very, very common anymore. But they're used to taking radio with them. They don't understand, Rosa, about a radio program that made people stop in their tracks and change their plans.
Yes. Right.
You know, the classic story is people stayed home by the millions to listen to Amos and Andy.
That's right.
And did nothing else.
That's right, yes.
And you were there.
My favorite program to play was, and there's a good reason why, was Between the Bookends with Ted Malone. And the theme was Auld Lang Syne. And the reason that I loved that program best of all was he would bring in his program and what he was going to do, and then decide just before we go on, I don't think I'll do it, and change his mind. So we never rehearsed, and we always came out on the button.
Yeah.
Right on the dot.
Professional.
Okay. So this was the theme. Ourselves on the fact that we didn't rehearse, and he did everything ad lib, and I background him with the music. But one day he came in and threw the papers across the desk and said, I don't think we'll do these today. Why don't we do something different? And he thought a minute and said, let's do girls' themes. Okay, fine. So he said, how about Sally? Oh, no problem. Play that. And he said, how about Dinah? No problem at all. And so on. See, how about Ida? Sweet as apple cider. I played everything. So he said, okay. He said, how about Charmaine? Oh, no problem at all. So I said, my Charmaine, my Charmaine. And when I finished, he said, are you sure that's Charmaine? And I began to temperature change, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting 60, 70, 80, 90. I'm getting about 100 now in temperature.
You knew you were right.
Yes, I'm right. Da-da-dee-da-da-da-da-da, my Diane, my Diane. Oh, yes, okay. So we go ahead, and after the program was over, I hot-footed down to the library, music library, and I said, may I see Diane? So they bring Diane out. I said, may I see Charmaine? I had played Charmaine.
Yeah.
Charmaine said, I got the two mixed up.
Oh, yeah.
See?
Easy.
One went down, so the other went out. But they both fitted right, Charmaine, Diane.
I got to tell you, you had me fooled.
Oh, wait till the letters come in, what the people are going to say.
Yeah.
No one wrote.
Nobody.
Never heard from anybody.
Well, for a minute there, I was thinking you were playing Charmaine and you were playing Diane.
We didn't hear from anyone.
Yeah.
And he'd say, oh, hello there. He said, your picture there is a little bit crooked. Why don't you straighten it? Sure enough, he would get a letter from somebody. You were right. Mm-hmm. I was sitting in my living room or my bedroom, and my picture was crooked, and I got right up and straightened it.
You talk very, very gently and kindly about this man. He was a special guy.
He was. Well, we had a wonderful relationship. Mm-hmm. We disagreed on politics and religion like mad.
Yes.
And we'd argue like argue just so, and he would go through that. Hello there. Then we'd just go
on the air.
Yeah.
I listened to him as a young man, and he was just a gentle person. He told stories, didn't he?
Yeah. And it was such a people would say they thought he was in their living room.
Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So it was that's I enjoyed doing.
Well, that's radio at its very, very best. Yeah.
Then we had one that was the men like. I was Bill Stern. Before we went on with the news.
Bill Stern, the Colgate something was on the air.
You're so right. You're right. 10:45, and then we ended, and the news came on.
Yeah. Well, when my first year in New York, I worked with that gentleman.
Yes.
He was well into his career, and it was the end of his career. But I knew Bill Stern quite well.
Right. Yeah. Well, all those are just a few of the ones that I did. Mm-hmm. But there are a lot of other things to do. But of course, you remember this.
And although he's not very well, Mr. Hope is still here.
Robert Hope, Bob Hope, as you said.
Yeah.
And those were the musical big shows, not soap operas. Of course, everybody loved this.
Love and Bloom, Mr. Benny.
And everybody loved that show. They loved him. Yeah. And of course, when we're on, we don't get more than 3 notes. Everybody knows what this is. So what was it?
The William Tell Overture.
And what was the show?
The Lone Ranger.
Hi-Ho Silver.
Hi-Ho Silver.
Everybody loves that, the Lone Ranger.
Yeah.
And Bill never has to tell them. They know it before. Sure. But that's what they love to do. They love that feeling of being a part of it one day, once in their lifetime. Of course, this was one of our beautiful shows, and it was a popular song. Fred Waring, Sleep, yes. Sleep.
Oh, Sleep.
Yeah.
See, yeah, sure. it's another gentle man.
Oh, yeah, that was a wonderful. And he was said to be a very hard taskmaster,
Was he?
but he got results.
Mm-hmm.
There was no fooling around with him.
The Pennsylvanians.
Yes, the Pennsylvanians. He produced it.
And he also made the transition to television very successfully.
Yes, he did.
He was wonderful
yes,
on
he
TV.
did.
Yeah.
And he left for the present coming in a wonderful way of knowing lyrics and how to sing them with such finesse. He just, as in the trade, we said he really milked them. And milked those lyrics, and everything was so beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you, of course, you remember this.
That's from Grand Canyon Suite, but it's the famous
from the Grand Canyon Suite.
Philip Morris.
Philip Morris,
theme. Yeah, Johnny Philip Morris.
Yeah.
And when they played that, whether you played it or whoever played it, there was always a sound man in there to give us the clip.
Yeah, is that right? You hear the horses.
Yeah, the horses. Yeah.
Right?
What a wonderful, wonderful effect. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it makes you think. You could see the animal.
Well, again, how important music was to the shows.
Yeah, yeah.
See, very important with the music, because people associated those things and they got them fast. You mentioned one that you like.
Oh, yes.
Now, that show came from the West Coast.
One Man's Family.
One Man's Family.
What a wonderful show.
Yes, that was a West Coast show.
I'm thinking of names. I don't want to put you on the spot. It was a West Coast show, and you didn't work that particular show. But you know, Margaret Sangster with My True Story.
Yes.
And I'm trying to think of the name. Who I think it was Phillips H. Lord. No, that was Gangbusters or Carlton E. Morse or something like that.
Oh, that was Carl Morris. He produced that show.
Okay. All
yes.
right.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, you're bringing up all kinds of memories, and I'm putting my brain to a strain here, trying to think of these old names that we thought.
Well, it's wonderful because everyone has such a great association with them, people, and as Bill always says, people in those days did not have to look at their clocks.
No.
They knew at 10 o'clock. They heard My True Story at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Or they heard 11:15, they knew that was the Goldbergs.
Yeah.
Or they heard it so-and-so, whatever. Now, we had it very good. We organized at one time. We used to do 2 shows of the same thing, like Merton March at 10 o'clock, CBS. And then we redid it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon for the West Coast.
Oh, right. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yep.
There was a lot of that repeat broadcast.
That was good money in those days.
Yes.
When you had a repeat show. We were very glad to have it.
Well, we'll just leave that to our viewers' imagination.
That was a lot of fun.
For the time, it was very good money.
Yep, it was. And we kind of always look forward to it. Now, one of them that I enjoyed, and she was supposed to be a very hard taskmaster, but I got along beautifully with her, with the Goldbergs.
Oh, really?
That was Tosso's Serenade.
And you would hear Molly say, hello? Is anybody?
Yes, that's right.
Is anybody? What does that mean?
And she was so funny that you had to repress yourself because you weren't supposed to make any noise.
Sure.
And she was such a character. She could be one thing just before the light went on, and be another thing. She was really something, and you had to control yourself not to laugh about it, And anyhow, one more that was very popular, Stats Cotsworth was well known.
Mr. District Attorney?
District Attorney and a couple other things.
Was he Casey Crime Photographer or something?
Yes,
like that?
Crime Photographer, you're right.
Yeah.
Crime Photographer, you're good.
I'm old.
Well, he was in When a Girl Marries.
Okay.
When a Girl Marries. Right.
Oh, yeah.
Then he did You and I Know. And he was so much fun to work with. He would clown. Orson Welles was like that too. He would clown around to the very last second that we were on and then go into his character. And Stats would do the same thing. He would pull all kinds of tricks. Imitate everybody that you could think of, and then the sign went up, you know, and right away he was in another character.
Okay.
But you know, that's what made it so interesting. Radio was wonderful because we were all one big family. Well, I didn't feel that one bit when I went into for TV. It was entirely a different thing. There wasn't that. But in radio, we were all in the same room, the sound department and everything, and we all knew each other's joys, and we knew each other's sorrows.
And families and everything else.
And we felt very, very much of a family. There wasn't any one of these soap operas that they weren't like a family. Right. Every one.
Okay.
And you did not get that when you went into the TV.
Rosa, as we're running out of clock here, and I'm sorry to say that because everybody on this particular program has stood around listening and enjoying every note, every bar. I wanted to ask you about time, talking about the clock. You mentioned to me in a conversation we had some time ago that there were times when you didn't have an awful lot of time between programs, running from one studio to another. In the same building, or did you have to go to other buildings?
Oh, no. In the same building, on the same floor, I had 40 seconds. 40 seconds. So what I did was to go previously to give a test to the engineer.
A sound check.
As the first sound engineer, and set my combination and ask them what I was supposed to do. And then I had one of the nice ushers. You know, we always had very young, handsome ushers.
Yeah.
And I asked one of the boys to be at the door. So what he would do is to hold his hand and people get out of the way.
We have a picture
I would
of
come
that.
right out and run like mad and get on this thing to come down, wow, right on the dot.
Okay.
40 seconds.
We have a picture of that. And
that's
they're
right.
probably looking at it right now.
It's a lot of fun.
I know you love Ted Malone, and so did the world, the radio audience. There any other people that you know, came together with and worked with, actors and actresses, that really stand out very, very much in your mind?
Well, the circles started to be very large with My True Story.
Yeah.
It grew to be a very large circle. That I like very much. And Ted Malone has, as you know, he's not with us today,
no.
but his wife just recently moved here, so we're still very dear friends. We keep in touch.
I was just wondering about people like Jessica Dragonette.
Jessica had an orchestra, so I knew her, but I didn't know her that well because she had an orchestra with her. But there were so many people. You know what? I can't think.
Well, you said that Orson Welles was a great clown.
Yes, he
as
was.
well as a formidable mental giant.
He was so funny. We see whenever we have a break, why we're supposed somebody goes out to have coffee, or they want to be quiet. Some people like to be quiet. Not he. He would entertain us until the time was up, and we'd have to stop it. I don't care if he had a broom; he could make that broom talk. He was just a ride.
Well, I noticed a lot of the programs that you were associated with, some actors and actresses who became very, very big on the screen.
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
Agnes Moorehead, it seems, was always doing radio
Yes,
drama
right.
and people like that. But of course, I suppose a lot of that was West Coast.
Yeah. Well, there's, for instance, Tony Randall got his first start on my program, My True Story.
Really?
Yes. And of course, you know how he just grew.
Oh, yeah.
But what was interesting was the first time that, and he was quite young, that he got a part to play on, when the show was over, the director was Charlie Warburton. He was one of the old Vics from England, and he was quite a character. And he said to me, he said, "Rosa, see that boy? Watch him. He's going to go places. Mark you." And he did. Oh, he saw the talent in Tony right at the very beginning, and he said, watch him. And so it's been very interesting because he did just go up and up.
He also have an album home of Tony, a picture of very young Tony Randall on I Love a Mystery, and that was a West Coast show, wasn't it?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Listen, we are out of time. That clock just won't stop. And it's just my point right now to thank you so very, very much for letting us just, you know, an idea of what that life has been like and still is.
I love every minute.
And you're still teaching.
Still
you
playing,
teach every week.
I am busy all the time.
And you and Bill have engagements, concert dates, and so forth. And you do what you just did for us in theaters all over the country.
I learned in radio, which I love dearly. The one thing was I got up each morning and I loved what I was going to have to do that day.
And you still do.
And I still do.
And you still do.
Yes, I still do.
Would you still do by playing out the song, very famous song that I understand you use at all your personal appearances?
Yes.
When they bring you up from under and you come riding up into the view of the audience.
Yes.
Would you play that out for us?
And what is the name of it?
I think it's Everything's Coming Up Rosa.
That's right. Everything's Coming Up Rosa.
Thanks, Rosa. Thank you.